It's been 5 years since the CZU fires devastated the region and, in particular, Big Basin State Park. But nature has been hard at work renewing her landscapes, and on Monday, August 18th, a special Remembrance and Renewal event will take place from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. as a collaboration between Big Basin State Park and the Mountain Parks Foundation. This family-friendly outing will feature a guided walk, a community art project, and more. And here to tell us all about it are my guests, Joanna Ferraro from the Big Basin State Park Education Team, Brenda Holmes, Executive Director of the Mountain Parks Foundation, along with Colleen Douglas and Donnie Pappas, Forest Walk Guides from the Redwood RX program. Welcome, everyone, to Talk of the Bay, and let's just jump right in with a little more in-depth overview of this event.
Hey, Christine. Thanks so much for inviting us to join you on the show. We really appreciate it. My name is Joanna Ferraro, and I have the great pleasure of being part of the education team at Big Basin Redwoods State Park. And part of what we get to do is organize community events and support community events that with our nonprofit partners, like we're doing for this very special 5th anniversary of the CZU Remembrance event on Monday, August 18th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So we want to invite our community of folks to come and reflect on the shared experience of that CZU Lightning Complex fire and tell some stories, share some light refreshments. And Colleen and Donnie, who are teachers with the Redwood RX, which is a program that Brenda from the Mountain Parks Foundation will talk about later, are going to lead a sensory hike. And we will also have some community art experience. So it's going to be a great time to connect with community members, to have a creative experience, to have a real felt sense of connecting with the forest in the state of recovery where it is now. Big Basin Redwoods State Park is the oldest state park in California. So as you can imagine, it has been beloved for many generations. So taking this time to reflect on that history and share those stories and connect together felt really important.
Thank you. So all of us have been tremendously impacted by the CZU fires, and Big Basin was really powerfully impacted. Brenda, Donnie, Colleen, you all knew the park before these fires. Could you just take a moment to speak to the impact that you've observed these fires have had upon the park and even on your own hearts, which I am sure is reflected in the hearts of many members of our community who may need to finally reacquaint themselves with Big Basin and have an opportunity to grieve and perhaps celebrate new life? So Brenda, could we start with you?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And even though it's been 5 years since the fire, in some ways it feels like just yesterday. Still, I grew up in Boulder Creek. So I went to school at Boulder Creek Elementary. I lived next to Big Basin for all of my younger years, and that was my backyard. And my family would go up there, and it had a special place in my heart long before I became the executive director of Mountain Parks Foundation. And before the fire, our organization was partnering with state parks, and we had just completed a tremendous capital campaign to completely renovate the Historic Nature Museum. It had been a lengthy process going on 10 years from start to finish. We were in the final days. We had just moved all of the exhibits back into that museum. They'd been taken offsite to Sacramento for safekeeping. And wow, we were getting excited and this was about to happen and they'd all been moved back in. And then the fire hit. And of course, I have family who still lives in the area. I was living in Boulder Creek at the time. The fire was hitting me personally. I was evacuated. And at the same time, I had an open phone line to my state park partner, Elizabeth Hammock, just getting updates on what was happening. And to hear the ongoing trauma, there's a fire in this part of the area, but it looks like we're going to get it. Oh no, the wind is kicking up. We're worried about this part of the park. But coming to August 18th, And I still have this vivid memory sitting in my brother's living room in Santa Cruz, which is where I had evacuated to. And my phone rang, and it was Elizabeth. And I expected bad news, but part of me couldn't even imagine the worst happening. And then she said, Brenda, sit down. And I did. And she basically said that every single building in the park, except for one, had burned to the ground, and that 97% of Big Basin had been impacted in less than 24 hours by this voracious fire. And I just couldn't even get my head around it then. But a week later, there was a small group of us who actually went back to the park. And it was the first time I'd been there. And of course, it was emotional, and driving through Boulder Creek and up to 36 and past the golf course and seeing the houses that had been burned and the trees that were down. And then getting to the park itself, it looked to me like this once lush, green, beautiful forest had been reduced to a sepia-toned photograph. Just getting out of the car, it was browns and grays. And the smell that I always associated with the park was completely different and gone. And the sounds of the birds and the animals and the people, it was silent. And that was a really hard day, I have to say. And it was hard to find in that moment, with all that was going on, the hope, which since then, I'm also thankful to say, has kind of rejuvenated itself in me. I've been back to the park many times since that time in 2020. And each time I see new signs of life just springing up alongside these blackened tree trunks. And yes, it feels different, but it also feels like I'm able to be part of history in a different way, seeing the life of a forest that we don't often see, and many of us wouldn't choose to see, but to have the opportunity to see what nature does when these devastations come through, and how the survival is not just slowly creeping in, but it's bursting out everywhere in that park. And it's beautiful, and the animals are back, and plants and flowers you've never seen before are able to grow there. And the sunlight is in places that sunlight never reached. And so I guess I would say to those folks who have been nervous about coming back because they're not sure what their emotional impact might be, yeah, it's going to be different. Please accept that and give yourself time as you're driving up, and you will see the differences. But I promise you, you're also going to see the beauty, and you're going to see the green regrowth, and you're going to be a witness to what nature is doing all around us. So I would encourage people to take August 18th as an opportunity to come back with like-minded folks who may be sharing some of your emotions, and have a safe place with the supportive guidance of a team of people who've done this before and are very skilled, to come back and join us up there and have this experience and reacquaint yourself with your friend.
Thank you, Brenda. That's so beautifully put. And that's a perfect opportunity for us to now pivot. But before we do, in case you've just tuned in, this is KSQD, community radio for all of the Monterey Bay. My guests are sharing about the CZU's 5th anniversary Remembrance and Renewal event happening on Monday, August 18th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Big Basin State Park. So let's get back to the show. So, Donnie, could we pivot to you? Could you share what was perhaps coming up for you while Brenda was sharing?
It was an incredible display of lightning that hit our area on August 18th. I had no idea how we were going to be affected by that because we weren't prepared for it. I grew up here too. My whole family lives in the San Lorenzo Valley. And the way Brenda explained it was so heartfelt. You know, I had an experience where I was afraid to go back to Big Basin. And I knew Big Basin was like home to me. She was like a grandma to me. She was really meaningful to me. And what happened was that I couldn't bear not going back to see her more than I couldn't bear not seeing her. You know what I mean? So I took all my defenses and I put them down. First, I felt my feelings. And then I followed my heart and I let my heart show me how to get back to Big Basin. I believe that this event that we're having is also another guidepost for the Remembrance and Renewal. And I was so grateful that I did follow my heart back to Big Basin because I didn't know what I was holding on to that needed to be actually accepted and released. And there was probably no other place I could do it. So if there's anyone out there listening, and they feel like on the fence because they're afraid, this is a great place to come and feel encouraged because it's going to be a beautiful, wonderful event.
Joanna, as an interpretive expert at Big Basin, could you speak to what you see in the park today?
Absolutely. Similar to what everyone else has shared, when I first went back to the park after the fire, the first thing that struck me was the sadness of what was lost. But after I have been working there, I get to see every single week something new. And it is truly just an inspiring thing to watch a forest heal. And through this process, I think there hadn't been a lot of research done on what a fire that affected the canopy would do to an old growth redwood forest. So we've had the chance to observe this recovery and learn a lot. And I also grew up in Santa Cruz County around redwoods, but I had no idea how incredible they are and how adapted and resilient they are with fire. Like Brenda mentioned, I think 97% of Big Basin Redwoods State Park was affected by the fire, but we have lost less than 3% of the coast redwoods. And those that were lost were, my understanding is, mostly near the buildings, and the buildings had burned so hot that they did have an impact on those trees close to them. But if you can imagine, with this huge, hot, very catastrophic fire, less than 3% of the coast redwoods in Big Basin were killed. It's just remarkable that California is adapted for fire and that these systems are incredible. The succession of plants. We've got this blue blossom ceanothus that was in the soil. These seeds stayed in the soil for over 100 years since the last time Big Basin had a big fire. And so out pops this fire follower native plant. And it is just an incredible, huge response. Not easy to clear a trail through, but it just does such a great job of stabilizing the soil after fire, providing for our native pollinators, providing for all the animal habitat, restoring the soil that we need. We can see madrone trees, tan oaks, manzanitas, they all grow back. The roots didn't die. So you have all of this incredibly vibrant new life on these plants. And in the case of tan oaks, they have suffered a lot from drought and sudden oak death. And now you have at Big Basin, just this huge, lush, new trees coming out from these old roots. So even though there is a change, so many of these plants that we loved didn't die, but they did change. And right now we're seeing all kinds of flowering plants. This spring, the redwood loop was just blanketed in wildflowers. It was gorgeous. And at the same time, I'm walking these trails month by month, and I'm watching the redwood sorrel make its way back. So much of the redwood sorrel, which is what I think most of us associate with that undergrowth and below the redwoods, these beautiful clover-like little gems, just so precious. And after the fire, the redwood sorrel in most of the old growth forest was just gone. But I'm watching it, and month by month, it is moving through the forest, and I can see this recovery taking place. And if you can meet it with this, not forgetting the loss, we would never want a fire like this to happen. This was not the cleansing wildfire that we want to have. This was a catastrophic wildfire that we did not want to have. But even though it took a toll on the park, once you start to see what is happening, it is incredible. I am every day in awe of the resilience and the beautiful relationships between these many plants. It is inspiring. And I think that's one of the things that makes redwood forest so wonderful. You have these 2,000-year-old trees. Many of you might know the mother tree on the redwood loop, which has this huge fire cave inside. That fire didn't come from the CZU fire 5 years ago. That came from fires over, 1,500 years. There was a catastrophic wildfire probably 500 years ago, I've heard. I can't be quoted on that. But, one of the things that is so amazing when you're around these redwood trees that are living for thousands of years, and the root systems of the redwood trees much, much longer, is you really see that what we have is a moment in time. And in the lifespan of a coast redwood tree, this is a moment, and we get to see and be inspired by that adaptation that they have to be able to be burned, to store energy for the regrowth. Coast redwoods in particular have so many evolutionary adaptations that let them be incredibly resilient. And it is fascinating. I have learned more about coast redwood trees working at Big Basin than I had any idea was possible. And they're still teaching us. And I'm so grateful for the many scientists, researchers, and citizen scientists that are helping to, translate the story of what's happening so we can, more fully appreciate the treasure of these old growth redwood forests. It's pretty fun. And if anyone wants to know more, come see us at the Visitor Center, because our staff and our volunteers are the biggest Big Basin coast redwood tree forest lovers that you'll find. And we just cannot wait to talk to people about what we're seeing and why it's so spectacular.
That was so beautiful and such a perfect completion of a circle started with Brenda. Thank you, all of you. I cannot wait to get to see Big Basin again. In case you have just tuned in, this is Talk of the Bay. I'm Christine Barrington, and my guests are members of a team from the staff of Big Basin State Park and Mountain Parks Foundation who have collaborated to bring forward a special CZU 5th anniversary Remembrance and Renewal event happening on Monday, August 18th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Big Basin State Park. And so with that beautiful description of where the forest is now, I'd like to pivot to Colleen to talk about the guided walk and what you're offering for this very special event happening on August 18th.
We are so happy to be able to bring together community and walk into the Redwood Loop again together in a deep way, in a connected way, using all of our senses, using our touch, using our sight, using our hearing, using our smelling, and using our tasting. All of these senses that allow us to know in such a personal way the recovering redwood forest, the redwoods themselves, the stages that are coming up, the tan oak with their different colors up above and below, whatever water is going to be there that day. It's a joy to be able to bring you all there in this deep way. We connect with the elements, the earth, air, fire, and water, and the fifth element, which is love. We connect with that because love is what brings us together, the open door to connection. And love is what we people all can bring with us from our previous experience with Big Basin, or even if you've never been there before. We bring that love into nature, and nature benefits, and we benefit as well. It's a reciprocal relationship, and we're just so glad we get to guide people on the 18th of August to a new way to experience this forest.
Thank you, Colleen. That was a wonderful description of the guided walks that you and Donnie Pappas offer through the Redwood RX program. And these are developed through the Mountain Parks Foundation. Brenda, as executive director of the foundation, could you offer our listeners a little history of this marvelous program?
Talking about the fire in Big Basin, what we often forget is that happened in the middle of COVID. And so all of us were reeling from a different sort of disaster already. And many of us were experiencing what it felt like to be separated from those that we loved and not in communion and community. And during that time, my partners at California State Parks and others within our organization, Mountain Parks Foundation, started to listen to what was being said as people were coming out to the parks. And they were saying, my God, thank goodness I have my trees. Oh, there's a place to come where I can still feel okay in my life. I'm so afraid in what's happening, but being here, I'm finding peace, I'm finding wholeness, I'm finding comfort. And it was really that was the start of our idea about creating a new program within Henry Cowell and Big Basin, which in essence was a nature-based wellness program where human beings could come and partner with nature and realize how much solace and love and comfort is always available to us outside with our natural beings that surround us. And that, COVID schmovid, we've still got our trees and we could still come somewhere and experience that well-being. So that was the genesis of our program. Since then, we've had 2.5 years. This is our third year, and we've been expanding our offerings. We have over 76 different classes that are offered during our season, which runs from April through October. And we do offer a few classes at Big Basin. We offer many in Henry Cowell, and we also offer some up at Fall Creek, which is a subunit of Henry Cowell. So I will just end here by saying that on August 18th at this wonderful event in Big Basin, I plan to go. That's my actual birthday. And that is the gift to myself to join the group up at the park that I love, witnessing the new life springing up all around me. I can't think of a better way to spend my birthday.
Well, beautiful. That's a perfect way to pivot back to you, Joanna. If people come to this event, what time should they arrive? What should they bring? What's available? And what will they experience? You gave us an introduction, and I'd just love for you to walk us through that again and then let people know where they can go if they need to reserve or register or get more information.
Absolutely. So, like we said, on Monday, August 18th, from starting at 10 a.m., going until 1 p.m., we're going to have this Big Basin Redwoods State Park 5th anniversary of the CZU firing, a Remembrance and Renewal event. And people can register on the Big Basin Redwoods State Park website if you look for the events tab. It is a free event. However, there is parking. So if you don't already have your California State Parks Pass, you can reserve your spot ahead of time, or you can pay $10 for the vehicle day use fee. And we will be meeting at the temporary visitor center. Always like to let people know visiting the park that we don't have drinking water available except for purchase. And there is no cell service available at Big Basin. So be sure to bring snacks and plenty of water. We will have light refreshments at the event, but do plan to bring what will make you feel comfortable.
And there's going to be art there. Could you just speak a little bit to the art, what people can expect?
So part of what we're going to be offering is a creative experience. So my coworker Erin and I are going to be setting up using charcoal from the fire and painting with the tannic acid from the redwood cones. So if you've ever parked a car under a redwood tree at a certain time of year and seen those red droplets, that's that tannic acid, which is part of what gives redwoods their red color and also gives it some of its superpowers to be long living. And we use that as a watercolor. And combined with the charcoal, you can make some really beautiful designs. So it's going to be an experience. It's family friendly. All ages are invited, all experience levels. And so that is going to be the community art experience.
In addition to the art, there is also a reimagining Big Basin aspect to this event. What is that all about?
So the Santa Cruz State Parks District is leading the Reimagining Big Basin project, which is a team of folks working to outline the recovery and reestablishment of the park in the wake of the 2020 CZU fire. The reimaginingbigbasin.org website has a ton of information. And my colleagues that are working on that project will be at our event on the 18th, and they will be there to share information about where we are in the process, what values are informing the facilities and tending the land practices, And so they will be there to, to listen and to get people informed and excited about what you're going to see in the coming years and what's already been done. And I find every time I hear them talk, I feel so inspired by the new park that is growing out of the old.
And, I imagine administering all these fabulous programs that help us move forward with resiliency and with community connection are pretty expensive to administer. If people would like to support any aspect of what's been talked about today, Joanna and Brenda, if you could speak to that with our listeners.
Yeah, Mountain Parks Foundation is a partner of California State Parks at Big Basin and Henry Cowell. And one of our roles is to provide funding for programs such as the program we're holding on the 18th of August. And also, we're part of the Reimagining Big Basin project, both as a funding partner and also as an advisory partner. So anyone in the community who would like to support the work that's being done in those two parks, or specifically our Redwood RX program, you can find more information on our website about how to do that at mountainparks.org. And there are many different opportunities.
Thank you so much, all of you, for offering such a special event to help us heal and reconnect with this very, very special place, and to also have reflected to us that when really catastrophic things hit, we can come back, and it may be different, but it can be rich and fertile with life. Thank you so much for making this event and sharing it with our listeners. I hope many of them will come out and join you all August 18th. Thank you so much. This has been Talk of the Bay on KSQD, community radio for all of the Monterey Bay. I'm Christine Barrington. Stay tuned for more great programming right here at the Squid on 89.5, 89.7, and 90.7 FM.